Today we are looking at weight loss programming applications. So what we mean by programming application is like, all right, like you got the client, you've assessed them, you know a little bit about them, you know what their goals are. We know exactly what types of things are going to be most effective for like weight loss and stuff. It's going to be like high energy programs. We know that we need to make sure that we're keeping our clients safe. We know that we want to move through different phases of training so that they don't plateau. We've got a lot of like general principles and guidelines that we're going to kind of follow and stuff. But today's the day where we're going to get specific about those things. So after completing this lesson, we want you guys to be able to kind of sequence your fitness assessments, first session, second session, and sort of how to walk through that third session as well. Talk about like a long-term plan, which is always much more effective than just sort of winging it as you go. And when it comes to writing a program, also how to deal with any challenges that arise from like non-compliance issues. Like if your client just has a really hard time sticking to a program, maybe it's a little bit too difficult to adhere to. We're going to talk about some strategies that are going to kind of like help with that. Because it'll happen, like I said, everybody hits a plateau. Everybody's going to have problems now and then. So the goal here is to sort of flow us through our first 3 personal training sessions. But in order to be able to do that, we have to have a little bit of an understanding of like how to actually write the programs before we get there. Our job is to make sure that we keep our clients comfortable, safe, and working towards their goals. But you can't do that without like an actual plan of action. So that is sort of what we are looking at in this plan of action. So before we start breaking down like what you should do for your first 3 sessions, I do want to intro, where's my share sound on? I do want to intro sort of how the OPT model works and how we're going to sort of pair that and break that down. So this is just a brief little video by one of NASM's partners. Like I said, I'm not super familiar with these guys, but I do know that they're like a direct partner. So here we go. I say here we go. Oh, there it is. This is just like a little webinar that this guy did.
Hey everyone, Craig Salmon here, one of the tutors from Premier Global NASM. And today I want to take you through NASM's very own Optimum Performance Training model. Now this is a template design model to help any client train in any environment to achieve any goal. So it takes away a lot of the guesswork involved in program design. So before I go into any more detail, let's introduce you to the OPT model. So here you can see our Optimum Performance Training model. Now this is split up into 3 different levels first off, and each level has a particular goal that it wants to achieve. So we start off in level 1, stabilization. This is a foundation level, albeit not easy though. It's there to improve technique, get good alignment with clients, and focus on the big term being stabilization or balance. Now, balance could be in terms of motor skills and our movement, all the way through to muscle activation. So as you know, muscles work in opposites, and we need appropriate recruitment or reciprocal inhibition on those opposing muscles to allow our body to recruit muscles effectively and move through the exercises that we've chosen. And it's in that stabilization level 1 that we create that foundation. And every client should spend some time in there to ensure that we're of the right ability to then move into strength and power exercises afterwards. Failure to have a good foundation could result in injury with our clients. So although that's the base level, the level number 1, could argue it's one of the most important levels in the OPT model. We then move ourselves into level 2, our strength level. And this is where all of the recruitment comes in. So we look at good neuromuscular activation, motor unit recruitment to enhance the ability of those muscles. Doesn't have to be to the levels of maximum strength, though that is one of our strength phases. It could be down at more of a lower level strength from a client that wants to be able to do more press ups or be able to do a chin up, all the way through to a client that may want to be able to max out at their deadlift or squat. So strength is all about our recruitment. Once we spend a period of time in level 2 strength, we move up to level 3 power. Now, power is relative. It could be an older client that wants to improve their health and wants to be able to go up a set of stairs without getting out of breath. All the way through to our elite athletes that are, competing in football, netball, running, all our big, powerful exercises. So we want to move ourselves through these 3 levels to enable our client to be more efficient, recruit muscles, train more effectively. Now, each of our 3 levels are broken down into 5 different phases. So we have phase 1, stabilization endurance. This is our level 1 component. As we said, we're really focusing on our balance here. Motor skills, muscle activation. We then move ourselves up into level 2. But level 2 is broken down into 3 different phases. We have phase 2, strength endurance, phase 3, hypertrophy, phase 4, maximal strength. Now, ideally, we move our client from phase 1 into phase 2, strength endurance. It's comprised of supersets, still benefiting the level 2 goal, which is to improve strength. But it's also trying to maintain some of the phase 1 work that we've previously focused on. So the actual aim of phase 2 is to improve prime mover strength whilst maintaining stabilization endurance. A really good stepping stone from that foundation level 1. Really good because it focuses on superset factors in the sessions. So it can be a really good epoch or metabolic effect. And lots and lots of benefits in terms of muscle activation and endurance within those muscles. We can then move ourselves up to phase 3 or phase 4, though these phases are optional. Not every client will need to go into these levels or would even want to go into these levels. Hypertrophy, this is very much to do with the aesthetics. Not just for the bodybuilding type, but can enhance sporting activities, can help with muscle mass increase, can help with body fat reduction there as well. We can have a whole variety of split routines, whole body routines, lactate intervals, Tabata that could be really beneficial in phase 3. We could even then progress ourselves up into phase 4, which is our maximal strength. And this one is a very specific type of strength. It is, well, the client that typically just wants to lift heavy. They want a 1 rep max PB on their deadlift, squat, bench press. So, hey, maybe that's not for every client. There's different levels of strength, right? We have some clients that come to us and say, I want to feel stronger. I want to be able to do more press ups. I want to hold a plank for longer. Maybe they want to be able to get a 5K PB. Well, that's all to do with good strength. So we spend some time in phase 1 to create this good foundation. We then maybe move up to phase 2 to improve their strength, but it's also focusing on the endurance element because they're saying they want to do more of things. Whereas if the client came to you and said, I want to get stronger, I want to PB my deadlift, then we could start off in phase 1, move into a level of phase 2, and then go up to phase 4 because maximal strength is their key focus. So we've got our 3 phases of strength that all come under that level 2 bracket. We then eventually get ourselves to phase 5, level 3, which is our power. And ideally, every client wants to get to this top level. It might take some clients longer to get there, but that's fine. We gradually progress them to get to that power level. And this is where we become explosive. We're looking at a good strength exercise followed by a real powerful, explosive 40% of your 1 rep max type exercise. So supersets are actually very dominant in phase 5. We could do things like a maximal squat into box jumps. But it could be done at a slightly lesser of an intensity, going into leg press, into fast bodyweight squats. So remember earlier I said that power was very relative. So the choices of your supersets will be very much independent to your client. So if you're going more of your maximal lift squats to a box jump, then that would suit client A, whereas your leg press to fast bodyweight squats would suit client B. Everything in this model and everything in our personal training should be client-centered, from all of the exercise choices to the phases we choose and how we progress through the levels. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more of an understanding of the OPT model and its progression through long-term planning. It's a great tool to have and a nice template designed to progress any client to their goals. Now the template is there to help you and move clients through those 3 different levels, but it doesn't mean that you're restricted to certain exercises and certain systems. That's where you and your experience can really come in. You'll have the template designed to progress a client, but you can play about with it to make sure that it's suitable for your client. And that's the next brilliance of the OPT model, is it fits into the most up-to-date personal training methodology. If we have a look at the analogy of SOAP, subjective, we gather information from the client based on their lifestyle, their nutrition, and their fitness. That's all done in the consultation process. The objective section of SOAP is where we gather as much data as possible through different testing, be that muscle mass testing, body fat testing, and we use that information. The A is the assessment. We do the overhead squat assessment, the single leg squat assessment, maybe even the push and pull assessments to check the client's movement, check for any compensations, which would highlight overactive and underactive muscles. And then the final thing in the SOAP analogy is plan. We use all of the information from the subjective, all of the information from the objective, all of the information from the assessment to create a very individualized, very specific plan for our client. So the generic program design is no more. It's very much individualized plans to suit this client, that client that you have, to achieve their goals.
Okay, so that is sort of the breakdown of the OPT model. Like I said, this is what we are going to use for writing out our programs. Now, if we go backwards from where the video started, right? He just broke down everything about how we know physiologically what's going to have the most positive benefits on 5 key areas or 5 main goals, but obviously there's so much variety within that. It really can be used with any single solitary client. So we can help our clients sort of start off on the right foot, by making sure that going into our first session, we're gonna give them a call, we're gonna get in touch with them, and then we're gonna make sure that they are ready to come into the gym, prepared and ready to fully exercise. And once they show up, that's where we are going to take them through the OPT model, right? So we have to have a really good understanding of that before we ever do this, right? So before we get into the PowerPoint here, I do just kind of want to take us through these notes here. Actually, you know what I can do is I can just put this over here and then I can see everybody. If we look at the 3 levels of the OPT model, right? Like he was talking about, we've got the stabilization level, the strength level, and the power level. Stabilization, all about developing stability. So you guys might have looked at those exercise checklists that I was handing out at Sochi the other day. And you look at the stabilization exercise checklist and you'll notice it's all things that are directly related towards helping someone develop stability and move through a full range of motion, right? So from the flexibility side of things, we're going to start. You can see the major category here that's appropriate for a client in the stabilization level is what we call corrective flexibility. So corrective flexibility is exactly that. It's how to actually fix corrective problems. Simon, just last night you were like, hey, I got a client who's got this hip problem. What do you think I should do? it's very difficult to know exactly without like actually seeing him or doing an assessment or things like that. But I do know, like, if his goal is to improve his mobility, I do know that he will benefit from corrective flexibility techniques rather than dynamic flexibility, functional flexibility techniques, or like active flexibility techniques. I really like those techniques, but like for this particular client, that's the type of thing that I would focus on with it, right? So what is that? What do I mean when I say corrective flexibility? Well, it's the stuff that corrects our postural imbalances, right? Foam rolling plus static stretches. Static stretches are really great because they're very good at like inhibiting a muscle and allowing that muscle to lengthen into a fully lengthened position, right? It's really good at like kind of shutting the muscle down, because that's what an overactive muscle is. It's a muscle that's firing much more than it's supposed to. So static stretches are like, hey, shut up, like they kind of turn the muscle off, and that allows you to kind of fully lengthen that muscle out. So that's going to be really good for correcting like somebody who's got postural imbalances. If you're walking around like this all day, because you're just like a stressed out person, or and you just need to get these muscles to let go, corrective flexibility is going to be your best friend. So all right, that makes sense with a brand new client who really has never exercised before. They've really never like taken their muscles through, ranges of motion like this before. So corrective flexibility is going to be a really effective technique there. And then we're going to follow it up with our, yeah, what's up, Edwin? Question.
Yeah, so I know we spoke about that like a few classes ago when we were doing the assessments.
Yes.
When it comes to like corrective exercises and corrective flexibility, is there like a pattern you follow for choosing the exercise, or do you just kind of try different things out and see what works better for them?
A little of column A, a little of column B.
Yeah.
It's not like I know it's not a definitive answer, but like a lot of times, you're gonna know the posture, pretty well, because like which muscles do what, right? So for instance, like if somebody does have altered posture like this, right? Like my shoulders are just like stuck up here. I'm kind of just like stressed out all day, right? We know that like the upper trapezius is the muscle that draws this upwards, right? So that's what I need to push down. So I'm going to stretch out the upper traps. But you might find that like, there's a scalene stretch, which is basically the exact, like your upper trap is this one here, right? Your scalene is just ever so slightly higher towards the ceiling. And then you put more emphasis on dropping the shoulder down. Because those muscles live right next door to one another. So like, should you do an upper trap stretch? You do a scalene stretch, like, you will kind of play around with it a little bit, the best way to look at that is like the hamstrings, right? Let's say you got a client with a posterior pelvic tilt, right? They're butt tucking hard. And so like they've got really overactive like hamstring muscles. So you go up here, you take a look. I've got the static 90-90 hamstring stretch, right? But I've also got the static supine biceps femoris stretch, which we know the biceps femoris is a hamstring, and the static standing biceps femoris stretch. So now I've got 3 hamstring stretches. Which one do I use? Well, it kind of depends on where this person's problem is. We know that like the 90-90 hamstring is pretty good for the upper portion of just the hamstring in general. The really meaty part, oftentimes in the middle of the hamstring, right? Like and like the medial side as well. Versus both of we know the biceps femoris, that's that lateral hamstring that runs down the outside of the hamstring and ties in behind the back of the knee, right? Those, if your client also like, they're a butt tucker, and then you look at their fitness assessment and you notice that their knees cave in a little bit as well, or they might have like a flattened foot posture or something like that. It's like, oh, they're getting like rotation, and that's where the biceps femoris is the real bad guy. So chances are that 90-90 hamstring stretch isn't the proper hamstring stretch for that client, so you do kind of play around with it a little bit, right? Like you'll take your client through a 90-90 and they're like, I don't feel anything. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's try this hamstring stretch instead. And there's way more, by the way, guys. Like there's definitely more stretches than are just in your textbook here. Like way, way more of them out there. But this is like very, this is a good starting place. Also with tight hamstrings, I would assume like the adductors that comes in oftentimes. This adductor magnus muscle in particular is the joke in the training community is that we call it like the third hamstring muscle sometimes. Um, and that's like, that's because it kind of often causes the same problems. Does that answer your question? That's a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and yeah, I'm also wondering because I mean, if they got any deficiencies, like they're probably like any of the stretches they're probably gonna feel because they probably haven't worked out in a while, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. So does it ever become a workout in and of itself? Like, have you ever had like one day of just corrective, exercises or like what's the frequency like if you ever make it a workout in and of itself?
Oh,
like just corrective
sure.
exercises and stretches.
Yeah, especially in the beginning. Like, what's going to end up happening at some point, guys, probably in your first, it's going to happen. I happened to me a lot more when I was newer, is you're just going to wreck someone, like you're going to bring them in and be like, all right, so we're doing 500 lunges today. And they're like, oh, okay, I can probably do that. And then the next day they call you and like, I can't get off the toilet, like, yeah, you're going to blow somebody up, like, and so they're going to come in and be like, I'm here for my appointment. I know I paid for this. I really think I'm too sore to work out. And honestly, light physical activity can actually be really helpful for someone who's ultra sore like that. But yeah, a stretching like session can be really effective. And then, part of corrective flexibility that isn't listed here, beyond self-myofascial release and beyond static stretches are those Pnf stretches that we discussed, right? Where you do the assisted stretches with your client. You drive them through full ranges of motion. It becomes very active. And like, it can be hard, right? Like you guys were pulling into one another. Like it kind of activates the most, it feels a little bit difficult. That becomes like an entire session type once you guys go through corrective exercise with Mo. So like I've definitely had full on corrective exercise sessions plenty of times, so yeah, absolutely. I think that sometimes becomes like a whole thing. In fact, there's actually companies dedicated just to that. If you guys want to go work, like if you're just not interested in doing sales, maybe you like working in an industry that's kind of based around tips, you can go to places like Stretch Lab. Stretch Lab's a really great company that, what they do is it's kind of like a massage parlor, but you can see what they're doing is they're all stretching, right? They are doing Pnf stretches or assisted stretches and just taking people through basically corrective flexibility, on this whole thing. I think it's great. I will say I wish that they had a little bit more like strength training. I wish that there was like a gym right next door, but that's not really the purpose of this company. This company is really built around the idea of mobility. But my problem with like people who only ever focus on mobility is like, you got to remember that muscles are two sides on a joint, right? You got the overactive side, and if you untie all the knots on that underactive side, great. Or I'm sorry, overactive side, that's awesome. But if you don't pull the muscle back the other way, it allows this guy to tighten back up and this guy never gets active. So you need to address the strength training approach as well. Like people who are like really tighten their chest, they're like, I stretch my chest, what the hell? And it's like, hey, strengthen your upper back, pull your shoulder blades back. You've loosened the front, but you got to pull it back in the other direction as well. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. Right. Start a company around. I mean, honestly, that's what a lot of training sessions are. That's what corrective sessions look like. If you go to NASM's, like, how I was showing you the OPT template the other day. It's the resource that NASM gives us to write our workouts. Right. Here's our programming template, warm up, cool down, whatever. Here is the CES programming template. And you'll notice it starts with flexibility inhibition. So there's your foam rolling, massage, things like that. There's, and then that's also where you're going to do your lengthening techniques afterwards. So you're going to inhibit the overactive muscles first with SMR, and then you're going to lengthen them to make sure they actually like fully lengthen. Then you're going to activate your underactive muscles. So you're going to strengthen the muscles and get them turned on. And then you're going to integrate those muscles once they're turned on with like specific goals. You can do a little bit of resistance training if you want towards the end. And then, throw in a little bit of client's choice and cool down if you got time for it. So yeah, that is exactly how corrective exercise sessions actually work. So that falls very well within stabilization. Right now, if we're also looking about like talking about activating underactive muscles, right? If we're talking about getting the right muscles turned on, so we can pull back on the other side of the joint, this is where what we call movement prep comes in, movement preparation, right? Now, NASM is kind of making a big shift here. They are sort of reprioritizing the way they are doing movement prep. So for Mir, Joseph, David, Chris, Edwin, they have kind of retooled this in the new edition of the textbook. It doesn't change any of the information or how it works, but they have sort of moved it. So movement prep used to be core exercises. That's obviously for your core, balance exercises for your balance, and then plyometrics, which we call reactive exercises, which are really explosive movements, all about teaching your body how to do landing mechanics, right? They've moved that plyometric stuff into the SAQ section, so the speed, agility, and quickness section, and they're calling that skill development now, which makes sense because like it's a primarily important set of tools for athletes. Whereas like core exercises and proper balance are things that are effective for really any client. So if we go back to NASM's, template, you'll notice they've kind of retooled the OPT. It works exactly the same. Like it hasn't actually changed at all. But if you look, you can see activation is what they're calling it now rather than movement prep. Personally, I actually like the term movement prep better, but that's where we primarily focus on core and balance exercises. And then skill development is speed, agility, and quickness. And then the plyometrics got moved down to here, which is where like now there's a little bit less pressure as a trainer to take somebody who maybe isn't trying to become like an athlete and make them do like plyometric exercises. They're like, I don't really care about jumping and I don't really jump that much in my life. And it's like, there's a little bit less there. Now, I would make the argument that everybody needs to know how to jump because it's not about the jumping, it's about the landing, right? There's the back of my head's got a movie line that I'm trying to remember what it is. And it's like talking about somebody, it's like, you know how to fly a plane? And he's like, fly, yes. Land, no. I think is it Raiders of the Lost Ark? Did I get that right? But yeah, that's like, like it's not the flying that's the hard part, it's the landing, right? And I think that's true of like jumping exercises as well. So I would argue this belongs back over here. But NASM has sort of moved this around. So let's say we've got the movement prep stuff. We're going to focus on core, balance, and then in the skill development, we're going to get into jumping, reactive exercises, and then we'll get into SAQ here. But if we look at this, right, if we look at the movement prep stuff for the stabilization level client, right, the stuff that we're focused on when it comes down to it are going to be core stabilization exercises, balance stabilization exercises, and reactive or plyometric stabilization exercises. So what I mean by that, like when I say it's a core exercise, but I say it's a core stabilization exercise, what I mean is like it's the type of core exercise, and you can see I put this in the notes here because this is the definition you want to hear. It's a core exercise that involves little to no movement of the spine. That's really the key aspect here, right? So now let's go ahead and say like we're writing a program for like a brand new client, right? We got our stabilization level client who's focused on like learning how to stabilize and move through a full range of motion for the first time. We're doing corrective flexibility. Like I said, what does that mean? Well, it's SMR and static stretches. That's what corrective flexibility is. And then for, I forgot to talk about cardio. We'll come back to cardio. So SMR, static stretches, right? And that's what goes in the warm-up section. So then they might do a little bit of cardio to kind of get their blood pumping. But then if they are doing like a cardio workout, great. They'll hop on the treadmill for 30 minutes. They're going to stay in zone 1, right? Because zone 1 is going to support the stabilization stuff, right? Remember, stabilization is like, it's all about like developing a foundation. So you wouldn't take somebody new who doesn't know how to like run and like make them run as hard as they can, get super out of breath to where they have to slow down, and then like they're starting to do interval training. It's not very, the problem with that is like you don't progress very well because you end up working too hard. Your cycles look like this, like what, if we're looking for like general improvement in someone, if we make them go like this, like really high, their heart rate's just spiking, they're going to like crash afterwards and want to slow down, right? So let's say like exercise like starts here, right? Like let's say this is the line where we consider it exercise, right? So with a client that you're doing this, approach where you're just like run as fast as you can, right? This is what most people do when they go running. They go running and they don't really like know so much what they're doing. So they're not pacing themselves. So then they sprint a little bit too hard. They get way above the line. And it's like, hey, that's great. Actually, you are seeing big improvements there. But because they're working so hard and they don't have any of the tools necessary to kind of maintain that pace, they like get to it where they're like, well, now I have to recover. And they end up like dropping below the line because they have to recover so hard, So they end up like this. And so then it's like, unfortunately, well, my gosh, darn it. I got to stop randomly bumping my right clicker. The problem with this is everything below this line, all of this stuff down here, isn't really exercise. It's almost like wasted time during their session versus like, and so that's definitely something we don't want to do versus like a client who, if you put them in like, let's say zone 1, which is like 65 to 75% of their heart rate max, that's hard, but they're not going to feel like they have to necessarily recover. It puts them above the line and it's really just consistent the whole time. Like they're not taking their intensity up and taking their intensity down. They're just leaving their intensity alone, right? So then they're here. But what that's going to do is that's going to raise their overall fitness. It's going to build them a foundation of endurance. And then maybe they can start getting into like medium intervals, right? So they do start going up. And yeah, they're going to maybe tease that line a little bit, but they're still like working pretty hard, right? And you can see like these are sort of medium intervals. And then what's going to end up happening now that they've got like a really good foundation, yeah, now they really can get into that like super intense interval. And then maybe they do drop below line. But the thing is, by this point, they've built up so much endurance, they're probably not going to drop very low below it. And they can just kind of get right back in it. They can do way more reps. They can spend more time above the line. I know this fake chart here got very messy, but hopefully that makes sense. So with a stabilization level client, we're not doing intervals, right? We're just starting with some steady state, 30 minutes, zone 1, 65 to 75% heart rate max. They should be able to keep that up, Oftentimes it's a walk, then it becomes a jog, maybe eventually it becomes a run, But let's say we get into the strength stuff, they get into the before they can do the strength training stuff, we want to make sure that they have their core activated. We want to make sure their balance is activated, right? Like Edward, you were saying like, stretch and strengthen, right? You can't strengthen until you have the right muscles turned on, right? Like, again, let's go look at the example of a client with a really tight chest, okay? So they stretch out their chest, but then they don't do anything to like strengthen up their upper back or work on their shoulder joint or rotator cuff or anything like that. So then what ends up happening is like when they go in to do like a row for like a lot of weight, because it's, they're lifting heavy, it's strength training, right? They're not going to do it properly because their chest isn't going to let go. Or maybe they go to do a chest exercise and their chest is like, even retightened back up because like none of these muscles back here are balancing. They're not pulling back. So then you're right back where you started before the session, So our movement prep or our activation section is really where we are going to get the right muscles turned on. So core stabilization exercises are a really good way to do this. These are exercises for our core that involve little to no movement of the spine. Okay, so like this is where you'll notice if you look at the list, right? Marching, right? Marching, you might think like marching like you're lifting your legs up and down, and you would be half right. But marching in the gym actually looks like this.
Over the last 2 months, I've lost about 20 pounds.
Man, they just put it, this is like a 30-second video. Okay, a little bit more. But this is marching, right? She's not moving her spine here. She's actually learning how to stabilize her spine, and she's just moving her hip joints around, right? That is going to be a really great exercise for the core focused on stabilization and nothing more, right? Next exercise we got the two-legged floor bridge, right? So the two-legged floor bridge is going to be like spine, staying in a neutral position, not flexing or extending. Okay, for the record, she's actually going a little bit too much. She is flexing her spine. We wouldn't want to do that. We want to keep it nice and straight. But as she like moves through that like range of motion there, right, that is teaching her spine how to stabilize. Then we've got like a floor prone Cobra. This one's all about like, holding, actually there's a floor prone Cobra right there. This is all about like holding the spine in one specific position here, right? So lots of core exercises that really are built much more around like holding your spine in one position in particular. For the balance stuff, we're going to talk about balance stabilization exercises, right? So there's lots of ways to do balance, right? Like I could do like a single leg squat, right? I could do like, something like this, or I could do like a Romanian deadlift on one leg, right? That's balance for sure, right? But balance stabilization, something for a beginner client, I'm not really focused on teaching somebody how to balance through a range of motion. I'm focused on teaching them how to balance in like one set position. I want them to learn how to stabilize their joint. Remember, this is the stabilization level, right? So I'm going to do things like a single leg balance exercise, right? Which is literally as simple as it gets. It is quite literally just this. You stand on one leg. Seems really simple, and it is, right? But the focus is her hip joint, which is part of her leg, her knee, and her ankle are not moving, right? That's a single leg balance. That's a balance stabilization exercise. Now she could also do the single leg balance with reach, which is this one here, right? And that's where, again, she's not moving her balance leg. She's moving something, right? She's moving her other leg, but her balance leg stays put. So balance stabilization exercises are going to be defined by being a balance exercise that does not move your balance leg. Little to no movement in the balance leg. Now, if we move outside of like the activation stuff. Now, and by the way, that would be really good for getting your client nice and active right in the beginning before we take them into the workout. Right now, we've got the right muscles turned on. Somebody who's like knees were caving in during the squat. Well, we stretched out their adductors. So now those muscles aren't pulling hard anymore. And now with like the single leg, it's to say they did the single leg balance reach, right? Now we've got that. Let's say they did like a glute bridge, like a two-legged floor bridge. Their glutes are turned on, which means their squats are going to look a lot better. We turned off the tight stuff. We activated the loose stuff. And now when they go to do their squats, it's going to look the way it's supposed to look. Again, this is all foundational stuff, right? Sorry, 1 second, guys. I'm just going to turn this down. So then we have got our plyometric approach. This is the explosive stuff. Now, if you're trying to really get a muscle activated and like teach the body how to land and be very explosive and fast, reactive exercises are great for that. You'll notice, those of you who are new, it says reactive or plyometric. I think by this point, NASM has pretty much switched to the term plyometric only. I really like the term reactive because it actually kind of describes what we're training for. We're trying to teach our client how to react. So like they jump, see if I can even find a picture of this. You look at something like this that isn't playing. That's nice, right? Like every time. Oh, good. It's an. Oh, you suck. I'm just looking for somebody jumping and landing. Nope. Okay. Apparently that doesn't exist on the internet. Not looking it up right. So reactive exercises are all about like actually landing in real time, right? Like let's say you have somebody jump and then like they hit the ground really softly right at first, but then all that body weight's going to come crashing down. we need to make sure their muscles are recruiting and turning on when they are supposed to. Otherwise, they're not going to recruit the right muscles and they're just going to crumple like a sack of potatoes. So that's what reactive exercises are. Now, that means jumping, even with beginner clients. You know, we're in the stabilization phase here, right? So plyometrics involve like little to no landing upon the actual landing. They involve little to no movement upon landing. So when they actually hit the ground, we're not focused on going into the next rep right away, which we would if we were in like a group exercise class or something like that. We're actually focused on having them hold that landing and stabilizing so that their brain, their nervous system can develop and know how to actually land properly, right? So that is what plyometric exercises are, right? That's the reactive part of plyometric exercises. Then if we got a client who's doing like, let's say they're doing like skill work, right? Well, the skill work, the speed, agility, and quickness stuff, right? Well, really the only thing we want to focus on with like a stabilization level client is developing their speed. We're going to focus on limiting horizontal inertia so they don't have to worry about directional change. And we're going to limit like any unpredictable nature here. We just want them to know how to do this, right? So speed drills are things like speed ladders, maybe a couple sprints, things like that. Now we'll get into the resistance section. Right now that we've done all that, our client is like, they're, you know, everything's turned on, they're ready to move properly. Right now, we can do actual like resistance training. And the resistance training is where we do maybe like a total body exercise, like a squat, curl to press, back exercises, chest, shoulders, back, chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, and legs, right? So that's sort of the 7 key types of exercises here. If you look on the exercise checklist, we got a bunch of them, right? And they're all exercises that are built around being very unstable, right? Single leg this, stability ball that, you know? I'm not focused on like being on a bench and being very stable and lifting heavy. This is the kind of stuff I teach my client, right? If I've got like a brand new client coming into the gym, they've never exercised before, I'm going to focus on stabilization exercises. Because if they can do a stability ball chest press, they can certainly do a bench press. Because like if they know how to work in an unstable environment, working in a stable environment will be very, very easy. And then we'll cool down with corrective flexibility and, you know, send them out of the gym. So now take a look, guys. If you take your notes, I'm going to open up a new sort of blank document here. If you take your notes and I just move these over. Like this. I've got the perfect template for writing a workout for a brand new client. I mean, I would have the perfect template if these darn things lined up properly. Like that's gonna drive me crazy. Let's just make this all the same size so I don't go nuts. So they got to warm up. They do a little bit of cardio. They got core balance reactive. They got resistance training. They got to cool down. Obviously, cardio, you know, can be its own workout. So we could actually even take that off on our strength training days. But now we've got a really solid template. So now all I have to do, if I want to take this one step further, right? Let's say I just, you know, fill these exercises in, right? Rather than saying a core stabilization exercise, let's delete this. Let's put a pro-niso abs, that's a plank, in there, right? Instead of, you know, saying a balance stabilization, let's pick a balance stabilization. Let's do the single arm, single leg motion, right? And the examples for all these exercises are in your book, right? So now I've built my workout, right? I go in here, I replace all these things, right? And I'm going to build my workout. And I did it using the OPT model and the OPT template, right? Which sort of pairs with the model. Any questions or comments on that, guys? How we all feeling?
Great.
Yeah? Solid?
Yep.
Love that. One second. Okay. So let's next move on to the strength level. So now let's say you've been working with your client for 30 days, right? You've been with them for a while now. you have been building up their stabilization. Now they kind of know how to move. Like they're way more athletic, right? And so it's time to move into like a new sort of phase of training, right? So what we can do now is we can focus more on like force production, right? Like we can go much more into like actually producing higher levels of loads. Because here's the thing, one thing we didn't look at is, I didn't really do a detailed breakdown on the sets and reps here, right? Look at stabilization, guys. It's very high repetition, like 12 to 20 reps, which makes a lot of sense considering that we are going for, brand new clients. We're trying to teach them how to do these movements. If you're only doing like 5 reps, their brain doesn't have enough time to like process and learn the information, right? Can you imagine if like, you went to one of my classes and then was like, all right, well, now go pass your test. Like it's all about like re-exposure, right? You need to put your reps in, right? Or if like, you get like your dad's like, all right, well, here's how you drive this. This is the 6th shift right here. You do this and da, da, da. All right, good luck. And then you're in charge of like driving down the road that's probably not the best way to do it. Like 1 rep's not going to do you much good. We need sort of like repeated exposure. So we have a high number of repetitions here. There's another reason for that as well. With high repetitions, we know comes low intensity, which is going to be safe for beginner level clients. So now they're not a beginner anymore, right? Like we've been training them for a little while. It's time to move them into the strength level, right? So strength level is all about increased force production. So we are literally trying to produce as much force as possible in however long it takes. Right, we're just trying to increase the loads, right? So there's going to be 3 phases within the strength level. Now, the only place that these phases are actually going to come into and be different from one another is where you get to the resistance section. You'll notice I've only got 1 warm-up written, and I've only got 1 movement prep written. And then it goes straight into like the resistance section. And then there's 3 different takes on this, right? Here's a strength endurance, here's a hypertrophy, here's a max strength example, right? So those are definitely different from one another, right? So what's the deal? Well, when it comes to phases, they really do only apply to the resistance section, right? Like when it comes to strength training, the way that you would train a client in max strength for warming up, or the way that you would train them for like their core, would be exactly the same for a client who's in hypertrophy. There's really no max strength core movements, right? Like, I don't know any power lifters who are, doing a, like maybe like a heavy cable crunch with like 600 pounds, like 1, and then they're done. Like nobody does that. Like that's just your core is primarily type 1 muscle. It doesn't make any sense to train it differently, no matter what phase of strength you are in. So the strength level is going to be the same for most of it until you get to the resistance section. Also, the exercise selection is absolutely the same across the board, because strength exercises are going to be effective whether you are doing them for high reps, medium reps, or ultra low reps, high intensity, low intensity, or medium intensity. It doesn't matter. Like the exercises are going to work in all categories. So strength endurance is all about endurance. Some comes as no surprise. Phase 3, which they're not calling hypertrophy anymore because I think nobody can say it. They're calling it muscular development. I wish Hector was here. And then max strength is all about like maximum strength. It's like, can you lift this thing once? Great, then you're strong. Like that's all it is. It's literally just maximum load bearing capabilities. So now you'll notice our flexibility training, the concept is the same, right? We haven't changed the idea behind what flexibility is for, because it wouldn't work that way, right? So the idea behind flexibility is the same. It's like, hey, turn off the overactive muscles, right? They're keeping my underactive muscles from working the way they're supposed to. So we do active flexibility. What is active flexibility? Why is it different than static stretches? Why do we need different techniques? Well, static stretches are great, but the problem, remember how I just described them, like, hey, they're really good. They turn your muscles off to allow the other muscles to contract. That becomes a problem if our goal is focused on strength. We don't want to turn muscles off, right? So instead, we have what are called active isolated stretches. And active isolated stretches are where you're actually going to stretch for like repetitions, right? So it might look something like this, right? You might do like a static 90-90 hamstring stretch. It might look like this, right? Looks just like any other stretch you would imagine, right? She's pulling her leg up, she's going to hold it for 30 seconds, right? But if I just change that from static to active, and we look at the active 90-90 hamstring stretch, it's going to look more like this. No, it's not going to look like that. So he's going to pull his leg up, and now rather than holding it for 30 full seconds, he's going to hold it for maybe 1 to 2 seconds, and then he's going to let go. And what this does is he's actually having to contract his quadriceps muscles. So now he's kind of getting the benefits of turning his hamstring off while also getting the benefits of activating the underactive quadricep on the other side of the joint. So that's why we really like active stretches in the strength level, because strength is all about like lifting heavy. So we don't want to turn the muscles off before we try to lift heavy. Then we're working against ourselves, right? So we do the type of stretch that's going to sort of turn one muscle on, and yeah, it's going to kind of stretch out and give us mobility in the other muscle. You might even get a little bit more flexible out of it. But the idea is like, it's not about maximum mobility. It's really just about like, you know, capitalizing on the mobility that we've already built through static stretches in prior workouts, right? And it doesn't have that drawback of shutting the muscles down, which we love if we are trying to lift heavy. So do you get more flexible from active stretching? Yeah. I don't think you get as flexible as you could. Like static stretches are going to be better for that. But it certainly has positive benefits. But it's missing the drawback of shutting the muscle down. And that's why we have different techniques. So we got a whole list, right? And it goes in the same exact order, just as like static this, nope, it's active this. Static, no, active. You know, like it's the same list. I just replaced the word static with active. Like honestly, guys, if you can do a static stretch, you can do it as an active stretch. Not all of them are in your book. You know, but if there is a static stretch out there and you know how to do active stretching, you can just retool. You can do anything as an active stretch. So that's SMR in the warm-up section, followed by active stretches instead of static stretches. And then we're going to go into stage 2 cardio, right? We are now going to start doing, we're going to start toying with intervals. We're not doing like maximum intensity intervals. We're doing like minimal intensity intervals. They're still going to go up, right? And then come back down, but we're not working like, and then like, right? So the idea here is like, you maybe do 1 minute in like zone 2, right? So that's 76 to 85% heart rate max. We're starting to get a little high on the heart rate. And then we recover back in zone 1, which is the foundation that we built in the previous month, right? So hopefully you'll be able to recover in what used to be your workout. Then we move into the movement prep section, right? The core, the balance, the reactive. So we're going to pick core, but not stabilization versions anymore. We're going to pick core strength versions, right? We're going to pick balance strength version, reactive strength versions. What the heck is a core strength exercise? Well, the difference was, remember we said that core stabilization was any core exercise on the planet where you don't really move the spine very much. Like you're activating, but you're really just holding in one place, right? That is not true of core strength. Core strength is like all the core stuff you're probably familiar with, right? This involves a full range of motion of the spine. So sit-ups, crunches, hanging leg raises, Russian twists, wood chops, all the stuff where you are actually moving your spine, back extensions, right? Which is what I got to do later today. Those are core strength movements that are all focused about actually moving your spine through a full range of motion, right? Now that we know how to like stabilize all the joints, we can move those joints through the proper mobility. Same thing is true of balance, right? We focused on just holding your balance in place. Well, now we're going to move your balance leg through a full range of motion. So maybe last month, I was just doing like a single leg balance with reach, right? And I was balancing and my left leg here was not moving. My right leg is, but I can do a lift and chop, right? I can do bicep curls, shoulder scaptions, right? I can do all kinds of stuff. As long as I don't move this leg, it's a balance exercise for the stabilization level. But as soon as I start doing something like this, like let's say I've got dumbbells in my hand and I do like an RDL, right? Like a Romanian deadlift. Now I am bending the hip joint. My knee might bend slightly. My ankle might move slightly. right? I'm moving my balance leg through a range of motion. That's the strength level, right? Because the strength level is all about full ranges of motion to develop muscle. And then the same thing is true of reactive, right? Last month we talked about like holding your landing. This month we're talking about like, all right, when you land, I want you to get into your next jump, right? So we start to go at we do a plyometric exercise at a full tempo. So you think about like a squat jump, right? If you do a squat jump and then you just repeat and you're just bouncing up and down, perfect for the strength level. Whereas last month in stabilization, it was like jump, hold your landing. Does everything look good? How's your angles, right? Your knees are getting, push your knees out, right? Got it. Remember it. Next rep. Hold it. That, remember, knees out, push, right? Hold it. Remember it. Next rep. Perfect, right? Now they're getting better at landing. This month, jump, 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 right? Get into that full range of motion. Speed, agility, and quickness drills. Now we can start doing some agility stuff. Last month, they learned how to sprint in a straight line. Now they're going to learn how to sprint and change direction, right? Sprint, side shuffle, sprint again, you know? They're going to go in different directions here. That's an agility drill. Now, for the resistance section, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. For the exercise choices, it's all the same, right? Strength choices, right? Stuff that's very stable, stuff that you can lift very heavy, typically barbells and dumbbells, right? I like kettlebells for strength as well, but kettlebells tend to be a little unstable. So I like them in stabilization and I like them in power, personally. Machines, actually, you know, you don't hear me gloat on machines very often, but this is actually a great place for them. Strength is a good spot for it. This kid that I knew tore his rotator cuff in school. And he couldn't like spot, or you know, like he couldn't spot his workout. We all have workout partners for the semester, and he couldn't like spot his. So that we were all like tracking bench press improvements, and he could no longer spot the thing. So it was really dangerous to have him do it. So his partner had to use the bench press machine instead. Didn't get to get on an actual bench throughout the whole semester. And guess what? His chest went up just about as much as everybody else's did. It was pretty linear, in line with the regular bench press. Didn't have the neuromuscular efficiency. You could tell it looked a little awkward because he hadn't done it in quite a while. But it came like, it snapped right back into place. So a lot of trainers who like trash on machines, look, machines are terrible for developing stability. But if you're just trying to build strength, like they can be a really valuable tool. Don't be afraid of machines. I don't love the leg press, but it works, you know? Total body strength, chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, legs, right? So these are full ranges of motion. Now, how we're going to apply these, this is where it does get different between phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. Strength endurance is phase 2, hypertrophy or muscular development is phase 3. Phase 4 is going to be maximum strength, right? Phase 4 is like the true, you know, strength phase, right? This is like, if we're looking at this, right? Let's say I've got a client in strength endurance. Now, because we're focused on endurance here, but we also still want to kind of capitalize and transition easily out of stabilization, you'll notice we're actually going to do a superset technique here. So you can do just total body exercises by themselves. It's really difficult to pair total body stabilization exercises together. But if you look here, let's say we got like chest, back, and legs. I didn't put biceps, triceps, or shoulders in here, but if you look at this, we've got a chest strength exercise. That's our first priority. So we start with that. Then we're going to pair it up with a chest stabilization exercise. And that's going to build up your endurance like crazy, right? So let's say the chest strength exercise, I'll look at my list here. Chest strength, right? Bench press, perfect example, right? It's a barbell, so it's very stable. It's on a bench, so it's very stable, right? I can really load a lot of weight on there. So I'm going to do, let's say 8 to 12 reps, let's say 10 reps, right? Go right in the middle. So I do 10 bench presses, fairly heavy, rack it. Now, immediately before I'm resting, I'm going to jump back into a chest stabilization exercise from last month. So I'm going to pair that up with maybe like some push-ups with my hand on a stability ball or a medicine ball, right? So now I'm really unstable and I'm working my chest again. which means I'm not doing 10 reps. I'm doing 20 reps. Good Lord, I don't know what happened to my freaking vent. That is obnoxious. So now I'm really developing my endurance, right? That's the whole point of this phase of training. I'm still getting strong. There's the strength part, right? But I'm also developing my endurance, and that's the endurance part, right? Strength endurance. Now, and the intensity is still relatively low because I'm doing 20 reps here, right? Like my intensity is like I'm developing my strength, but like the intensity is a little bit lower, which is going to be, very good considering. So then let's say I've got a client who, well, let's raise the intensity up. Let's start lifting a little bit heavier. So we're going to get into hypertrophy, right? This is all about muscular development. What do we know results in muscle growth? How do we make muscles bigger, right? We need a combination of two things. We need to lift heavy, and we need to produce plenty of metabolic lactic acid. Lactic acid will give us like the muscle damage that will result in inflammation, which will result in growth. So it makes you sore after your workout. And the heavy load will result in more proteins needing to get built within the muscle cells. So this is kind of like the perfect mixture of those two things, right? I would argue that this is best for lactic acid production. I would argue that this is best for load. But if we know that those are the two things that make muscle growth, I would argue that this is the best of both worlds, or at least it's enough of the best of both worlds that when you put them together, you get a really strong solution. So you'll notice we're going to do total body, chest, back, shoulders, biceps, triceps, legs, but we don't have to do the superset thing. And the sets are going to go up. We're going to go from 2 to 4, but we're going to raise it from 3 to 5 because, now we're lifting heavier. So because there's going to be less reps, we need to do more sets. The reps, we're going to go from 8 to 12 to 6 to 12. And then we're just lifting very heavy. And that's the whole thing. I will say NASM goes with 60 seconds of rest. I personally recommend like 90 seconds, maybe even 2 minutes. But that's just me. I tend to focus more on strength than I do on size. And then lastly, we got the true strength stuff here, right? And this is a, strength level climb, max strength, right? Guess what? The exercise selection is the same. My workout doesn't even need to change, right? Let's say I was doing bench press, bent over row, military press, and barbell squats. Same exercise. I do the exact same routine. I could do them in all three of these. Same routine for 3 months straight. But remember how we talked about breaking up a plateau? Sometimes you just change up the training a little bit. This will feel different from this, which will feel different from this. So I could do the same exercise for 3 straight months, and I'm probably not going to plateau on that exercise because the way I'm applying that stress is going to be different. So now the sets are going to go even higher, 4 to 6 sets. The reps are going to go even lower, 1 to 5 reps. And then my rest period is going to go up like crazy. Now, because I'm working so hard, I need to take like 3 to 5 minutes of rest. That's going to be really important to make sure that I'm, recovering. And then for my cool down, now that the workout's over, I can go back to doing static stretches. I don't care about shutting the muscles down. I'm leaving the gym, right? So let's do it again, right? Let's take a look. Let's build ourselves a routine over here using this like very easy to go template, right? I'm going to warm my client up in the strength level, right? Then I'm going to maybe on certain days do cardio, although that tends to be, it's not optional. Like everybody should do cardio, but like chances are you won't do it on your strength training day. So I will actually take that out of here. Then I got my resistance section here, and then I got my cool down. Right, and now all I got to do is replace the exercises, right? All you got to do is swap out these things that say pick a total body strength exercise and just pick a total body strength exercise, right? And there's my stabilization routine, right? But then next month, I move into hypertrophy, right? And so I go here, I replace all this, Ah. I was worried that wouldn't work. Okay, well, that's not supposed to be that color, but there's my hypertrophy section there, right? Stop filling that. There we go. Right, and now I've got a hypertrophy routine instead of a strength endurance routine. And then a month later, you get the idea. We turn it into a max strength routine. Oh my God. Word is being annoying, but there it is, right? We just swap it out. We just changed it up a little bit every single time. Does that make sense to everybody? Any questions on the strength level versus stabilization so far?
No.
Love that. Feeling good. Simon, Julio, how you? Julio, I know you're working, so you're good. But Simon, how you feeling?
Feeling good. I'm thinking about like using my little brother as a guinea pig for one of these.
Yes. Start him in stabilization. How young is your little brother?
He's 13.
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Start in stabilization for sure. And then when it comes to like lifting and stuff, you should, if you're going to move into strength, go into strength endurance, but I wouldn't go to hypertrophy or max strength.
You wouldn't?
I would not for that young.
Right.
You start to get into like 14, 15, you can start to get into the heavy stuff. But generally like without like I mean, he's probably like right on the cusp of like, you know, going through puberty and stuff. You didn't have enough testosterone really to benefit from hypertrophy or max strength. So it just does it. You're just not playing to his strengths. Tell you what, give me 6 more weeks, literally from like Tuesday, and you will know all this because we're going into the youth mod next. And we're going to talk about how to train teens.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about the last phase / the final level of training, right? So this is the power level, right? This is the top of the OPT model. This is where we are going for rate of force production. So it's kind of similar to strength. Like strength was like, you think about stabilization, it was all about how to move, right? Then you think about strength, it was like how to lift, like how to increase like your muscles strength, right? Well, power is kind of just taking that a little bit further. It's like, how do we recruit that strength? But now how do we do it in half of the time that it took us, right? So this is the force production before, as like we had before, but now we're going for rate of force production, right? So this is like how to recruit those type 2 muscle fibers, but faster, you know? And that's really what we mean when we say power. It's force times velocity. That's our sort of equation for power, right? You know, if I can lift 100 pounds, but it takes me 10 seconds to do it, that's good. But now, like, let's say I focus on lifting a little bit less than that, and I focus on like some speed, right? And then I come back to lift that same 100 pounds, and it doesn't take me 10 seconds anymore. Now it only takes 5 seconds. I've increased my power output by at least 50% there, right? So that's what we mean when we say like power, right? And you think about like cars, right? The people they're always bragging about like it's 0 to 60 in X number of seconds, right? The faster that happens, the more powerful the car. Rate of force production, right? That's what we're looking for here. So when we look at this, when it comes to flexibility, we're still going to do some mobility exercise. We're still going to warm up with our stretches and stuff, right? But we're going to be warming up with what we call functional flexibility. So functional flexibility is all of the like dynamic stretches. In fact, by this point, we're kind of relying on the fact that your client should be pretty mobile. They should have like a decent range of motion. If they can't have like, if they don't have proper range of motion, you shouldn't really be in power. And if they don't have proper range of motion, you shouldn't really be doing these dynamic stretches. And dynamic stretches are, you know, these are like body weight exercises for the most part. If we look at the power checklist here, you can see there's our foam rolling still, because we're still going to do that. But now it's like it's a prisoner squat, you know, like that's a regular old, you know, body weight squat exercise. Like you are using what used to be a strength exercise or a stabilization exercise. You are using like, is that pictures? Gross. Give me a freaking video. You are using what used to be a workout as a, warm-up exercise now. She's just like stabilizing and holding too. So you do not have to hold your freaking prisoner squats. You do it for reps. Please do it for reps. Good Lord. Then we got like all the other ones, right? We got a multiplanar lunge with reach, a medicine ball rotation, lunge with rotation. Even the Russian twist, which used to be like a core strength exercise, now becomes like a warm-up stretch for our spine. Leg swings, arm circles, things like that, right? So those are your dynamic stretches, and they're great, but again, they shouldn't be done by your client if your client can't move properly. When it comes to cardio, we are going to get into stage 3 cardio here, right? We are getting into zone 3, which means you can work in zone 3, recover in zones 1 or 2, right? And that's the high intensity interval training that we were talking about, right? This is where now that your client actually has like a good solid foundation, they built the steady state cardio, they started playing around with their heart rate a little bit. Now we can take it high, and that way they don't dip a mile below the line, to a pace that was slower than their warm-up was. Now they're able to dip back into what used to be their workout, but now is their recovery, and they can just get right back into it, right? And that's built up, strength in the cardiovascular system. So now we're getting to 86 to 95% of the max heart rate, and we're recovering somewhere in like the lower zones. So for our warm-up, we're picking SMR and dynamic stretches. Now you'll notice that like my cardio, right? I did a very, very simple version, like a little miniature pyramid here. 5 rounds of 1 minute at zone 3, 1 minute in zone 2, and 1 minute for recovery in zone 1, and repeat, right? That's 3 minutes each, 5 sets of that. That's going to be a 15-minute cardio routine. And you might be thinking 15 minutes, that's not very much. It sure is when it's intense, so that's great. You'll also notice that we used to do cardio as like a way to get the body warm. You actually don't have to do that in power because you're going to pick 3 to 10 dynamic stretches. This will actually act as your cardio warm-up. So it is optional. But if you have a client, you want to throw them on 5 minutes on the treadmill, you can do that still. It is optional. So then for our movement stuff, guys, the movement prep, core, balance, reactive, right? We're doing core power, balance power, and reactive power. So what the heck is a core power exercise? Well, we went from not moving our spine to moving our spine through a full range of motion. Now we're moving our spine through a full range of motion fast. We are moving it through, and we call it functionally applicable speed. It means fast, right? That is like, instead of a crunch, it's a medicine ball pullover, right? Which is a crunch, but very, very quick, right? Or a rotation chest pass, right? This is sort of, this is a really good core exercise focused on like spinal twisting. So like, let's say you do the Russian twist for 30 days. The next 30 days, you're gonna do a rotation chest pass, right? So you're actually gonna rotate rapidly and move the spine through a full range of motion. So she's twisting using her obliques, right? I will say this version of it, I'm not a huge fan of, like, because she has to like reset every rep. But it's not that bad. So that's our core power stuff. Then we've got balance power. Now remember, balance power, we went from not moving the balance leg to moving the balance leg through a full range of motion. Now we're going to move the balance leg super fast. So before we were doing like, the single leg Romanian deadlift, right? We were going down like this. That moved my balance leg. Well, now I might go through that balance and actually jump at the end, right? So I would do like a single leg Romanian deadlift to jump, stabilize, and then move it through a full range of motion again. Right? And that's going to be a balance power exercise. I am not only moving my balance leg, I'm moving it fast, right? And then reactive power. Reactive was already jumping. Like plyometrics were already explosive movements. So now we're doing plyometrics and we're exploding up off the ground as fast as possible. So these are reactive exercises that get extremely explosive. things like a single leg power step up, or, you know, proprioceptive plyometrics. This is kind of a fun one. Right, he's moving actually like very explosively, as fast as he can, right? Or like ice skaters, right? I always pick the wrong one here. That's kind of an interesting one. That's like an ice skater plus a jump at the end. That's a little bit slower. These are actually like Olympic speed skaters. So they're doing like actually like explosive, you know, they're like practicing their friggin' skill. Have we seen the speed skating yet in the Olympics? I mean, the Winter Olympics are happening right now. But yeah, these guys got little pauses in there. You'd want to move as absolutely fast as you can. So that's plyometric power exercises. Then we got SAQ. Now we can do it all, right? We can do some sprints. We can do some sprints plus directional change. But now we can actually focus on quickness. And quickness is where you have to actually do a reaction time to something, right? This is like, think hand-eye coordination, right? So I throw something at you, you turn around and you got to catch it. You don't know where it's going to land, right? Honestly, like Simon, if you're going to be training like baseball, go get some pick up some reaction balls or make your own reaction ball, right? So a reaction ball is like, you can see it's just a little like rubber ball that you would throw, but you don't know what it's going to do because it's got these little knobs on it. So like just warming up with something like that, that's a very reactive exercise. And then you guys can see they're actually doing like lateral shuffling here. That's a speed plus quickness drill. So they're getting a little bit of speed by side shuffling, and they're getting quickness because they have no idea how this really weird shaped ball is going to bounce, right? And that's what that's going to be. Yeah, it's going to be a very effective drill, you know, for grounding and stuff. So quickness is all about like reaction time. Oftentimes it's very sports specific. You know, football players would, you know, have to respond like, you know, quarterbacks are going to have to like learn how to like which body, like, you know, which way to scrimmage and run, which way to like shuffle and run and stuff. Receivers would have to catch, right? Basketball players, you know, they're going to learn how to like read somebody's hips so they can like stay with them on like a break or something. It's usually your quickness tends to be very sports specific. And then when it comes to our resistance training, we're going to get into power exercises, right? Total body power, chest power, back power, shoulder power, and leg power. You'll notice there is no arms. We don't do single joint exercises for power just because it doesn't really work that way. So this is actually going to apply a superset technique as well. Power is very, 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 very similar to max strength in terms of how it lifts, right? So max strength is all about force production, lifting really, really heavy. Well, so is power, because force times velocity, right? So it's still half of the equation here. So you might do like a total body exercise in the beginning, right? That might be something like a clean and jerk, or, you know, a snatch or something. And then you're going to do like, let's say like a chest strength exercise, like the bench press, and pair it with a chest power exercise, which is like a medicine ball chest pass or clap push-ups, something really explosive. So what you do is you superset these two together with a little bit of rest in between, 1 to 2 minutes between, and then 3 to 5 minutes afterwards. And what that's going to do is that's going to help you develop power by shifting the entire force times velocity equation, right? You get the force with the bench press, you get the velocity with the clap push-ups, or you get the force with the chin-ups, the weighted chin-ups, let's say, and the velocity with like a medicine ball slam. You get the force with the leg press, and you get the power with squat jumps. So obviously, you know, power exercises can actually be very, very light, but they're meant to be very explosive. Now, in terms of weight loss, since that's the class we're in currently, you're probably just going to kill all the strength movements and just do power exercises. Do a set of like burpees, followed by clap push-ups, followed by medicine ball slams, followed by squat jumps. You can burn a lot of calories, you know, like, and you are going to be breathing like crazy to boot. building up your cardiorespiratory system. So that's not bad, it's just a slightly different approach. And then again, we're going to cool down, and it's going to look exactly the same as every other one, right? Corrective flexibility, because the workout is over. So let's build it, right? Let's take this out and take a look, and you can see here's an example power routine, right? If I take the warm up, I take the cardio, which I probably wouldn't do on the same day as my workout. Take the movement prep, take the resistance training, and take the cool down. And there it is. I've got a great workout to give my client. I'm just gonna delete that, right? All I have to do is pick the right exercises, right? And I would base those exercises on, kind of like we were talking earlier, Edwin, right? I'd pick it based on their posture, and make sure that it's the right kind of sections there. So that is how we are going to use the OPT template. Now tomorrow's Saturday. Monday, I'm going to be putting you guys through an example stabilization, strength, and power routine. So what we'll do is we'll kind of build 3 routines, and then we're going to do 3 sets of that. We'll do the first set as stabilization, we'll do the second set as strength, and we'll do the third set as power. So come ready to work out on Monday. So we can actually, we're going to burn some calories. But it'll be fun, because then you can take those things and, do them yourselves. You'll have 3 example versions. We're not going to do like 5 versions of everything. That'd be way too many sets and, stuff. But okay. So now that you understand, hopefully, any questions on that first before we move on? Particularly my new folks, but really anybody. Everybody pretty clear on?
Brad, it's not a question, but can you please email me the lecture, the PowerPoints? I didn't get the email.
Yesterday?
No, today's.
Oh yeah. No, I sent it out at night. I sent it out.
Oh, I see. I didn't know that. Okay, so I'll get it later today.
Yeah,
okay,
for sure. And it's always on Canvas, by the way. You can always download it from Canvas if you do.
Oh, okay, good. Oh, okay, I got it. No worries. All right, thanks.
Look, I have definitely forgotten to email before, so so if that ever happens, just let me know. So let's take a look at the PowerPoints here. You'll notice I don't really have any notes to go with these things because it's not really that type of lecture. It's really built much more around practical application here, right? So let's go through it. So obviously we want to help our clients start off on the right foot, and we do want to incorporate the OPT template. So things that you should always do when you're trying to get your client to start off on the right foot: confirm the time and the date of your appointment. One of the best things you can do, guys, get yourself a scheduling app on your phone. Not so much just a scheduling, I mean, get a scheduling app, that is important, but also get a schedule text message apps. And what that means is like, it's like, I don't want to send you a text at 4:30 in the morning when I'm asleep, but I do want my phone to do it for me. So I'd probably not actually an example of 4:30, but let's say you're with a client, you don't have time to like take a second to remind your other client about their appointment tomorrow. So 24 hours before their appointment, send them like a confirmation email or a confirmation text, something to remind them, hey, we'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Right? Give them a description of what attire to wear. Make sure, like, if it's their first session, make sure they know to dress properly. We don't want anybody showing up to the gym in jeans. Anybody. We definitely don't want them showing up in flip-flops, right? And tell them exactly where to meet you in the gym. Usually there'll be like a specific area that, most trainers are going to meet up at. It's where the computer is, where you do all the schedule booking and stuff. Try to use a private location for the assessment. Like, let's say they show up. Remember, we are talking about working with individuals who are struggling with their weight, and we know that there could be some consciousness that comes along with that. So try to do like a semi-private location. This is one of the things that I actually look at when I am either going to be impressed or unimpressed with a gym. When I like walk in for like an interview or something, or if I'm just like taking a tour and I'm, something like that, I kind of pay attention. I'm like, where's the sales area? Is there a private area for like a trainer to weigh somebody? If I see a scale in the middle of a gym floor in front of everybody, I'm like, whoever designed this gym has no idea, like, how to actually work with people. Also, I hate it when machines aren't grouped up in a way that I think makes sense, but that's just me being judgmental. These are all things you should pay attention to before your interview. But yeah, I definitely think that you need to make sure that your client is comfortable. I mean, you're pinching them with a body fat tester, you're measuring them with circumference measurements. It can feel uncomfortable to do that in public. Make sure that any of the equipment that you're going to use that day is in working order. A lot of trainers will take the time to go set up like if you're doing a 3-minute step test, go get your step built and set up before you take your client over there. Or if you're doing a Rockport walk test, make sure that the treadmill, is going to function properly, right? Again, we don't recommend skin calipers with severely obese clients. Instead, focus on bioelectric impedance. If you got a body fat tester, body fat scale, those are going to be the most effective. Now, you can absolutely modify your fitness assessments. Now, we went through basically everything that you can do in terms of fitness assessments. Not every client is going to care about everything. Not every client is going to be comfortable doing everything. Some clients won't even be able to squat properly. So the overhead squat is out, and that's our favorite assessment, right? So you can make some modifications. They can do a sit and stand assessment. This is very popular amongst senior clients as well, by the way, where they just sit into a chair and then they stand up. You can observe a lot about their posture from standing into a chair. If they're standing and they lean forward like crazy, we know that like they're probably using their hip flexors. They have some weakness in their core, right? If their knees cave in, if by the time they get up into a standing position, their feet have rotated out, right? We know they have tight calves. It's all the same principles as the overhead squat. You can do a food intake evaluation, take them through like that nutrition assessment, right? Do a 24-hour dietary recall, unless they have like, they've been using, they're like, well, I've been using MyFitnessPal for the last couple of weeks. That's awesome. Great. Take a look at it, right? You can sort of go through some things and be like, so here's what I can see. Do a food frequency questionnaire. Ask them, hey, how often do you get a lot of sugar in your diet? What about your fat intake? What do you think your calories look like? Do you like junk food? Do you drink a lot? But all of this is really great. This is all time that you're sitting at the desk, you're getting to know your client, you're building some rapport, and now we actually know a little bit about them, so we can make some educated, suggestions where we're like, hey, these, you told me that your goal is this. Based on your diet, this right here in particular is kind of working against you. So you know what a really good adjustment against that is? Swap it out for this. Do you like that? And then like you can kind of work with them, right? Like, like I like fried rice, but like unfortunately it's not that great for us. But fried cauliflower rice is super low in calorie. It still tastes, it's got that delicious fried taste that we all love, like it's a good source of like vegetables and fiber, right? It's a good swap. That's one of the very few. Cauliflower, I feel like, has been swapped into everything. I tried oh my God. My girlfriend and I made this like cauliflower gnocchi the other night instead of like, pasta stuff. It was the worst thing I've ever eaten in my life. I spit that out so quickly. It tasted the way a sea lion smells. That like it was the worst thing I've ever put into my mouth. So yeah, maybe they're not gonna love cauliflower swaps, but it could be effective. Swap out butter for avocado. I know avocado toast is a whole meme, but honestly, it is pretty healthy. And then clarify their fitness goals. Continually remind them, like, that you are listening to their goals, that you are absorbing what they are saying so that you can work on that. And then help them like verbalize their goals out loud. Like we talked about the difference between like SMART goals and, I'm not gonna say dumb goals, but unsmart goals, right? Like we talked about the difference there. SMART goals are a really effective tool to help your client, like, set something that is specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, it's realistic. And then it's got a deadline, which we know is a super effective method. We don't want to have any unrealistic goals with our clients. Like if they're like, well, I want to lose 10 pounds in the next, 3 weeks, it's like, that's probably pretty unrealistic for most people. Or if you do lose 10 pounds in 3 weeks, it's probably most going to be water weight. You might end up frustrated on week 4 when all that water weight comes back on, Ideally, we're looking for anywhere from 1/2 to 2 pounds per week, depending on how big the client is, right? BMI of above 35, yeah, you can probably get closer to 2 pounds per week. BMI that's a little bit closer to like a healthy range, maybe 1/2 to 1 pound per week. Like I said, SMART goals are going to be effective. Also, generally focusing on like process goals are going to be much more helpful than just focusing on outcome goals. A lot of people have that outcome goal of lose 20 pounds, and that's great. But like also, numbers don't, they fluctuate, right? So that can lead to frustration. So getting them to also come up with like a process goal where it's like, for now, I just want you to focus on, let's see if we can get you to come into the gym. It's the month of February. It's February 11th right now. We've got, 2 weeks left in the month. Let's see if we can get 8 sessions in before this month is over. 8 times in the gym. If you can pull that off, you're gonna be in a great spot. That's the process goal, right? And so it's like, we're just trying to increase the amount of time they're spending time in the gym. So when you're organizing your workout session, you're going to use the OPT template, right? You're going to come up with a routine that's going to focus on, a proper warm up. You're going to do your movement. The warm up is going to turn off your overactive muscles. You're going to do a movement prep to turn on your underactive muscles. Maybe a little bit of SAQ, which is fun and just a great thing to throw into your workout. Get into the resistance training to make all their muscles stronger, bigger, faster, and then cool them down, right? So here's our OPT template, right? We fill this in SMR. Maybe we pick 2 to 3, really tight muscles that they've got. We follow those up with stretches that are going to be appropriate for them, right? Then we get into the core. Now everything's nice and active. This is very optional. Then we get into the resistance stuff, right? Oh. Did I get muted, guys? Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you.
Brad, I kind of lost you. I can't hear you.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me now? Or am I still gone, Joseph? Still. Hold on. Let's have you here. Let's have you kick out and then come back in and see if that fixes it. That's not good. Hold, please. There we go. Joseph, how's that? Can you hear me?
Now I can.
That's weird. I can hear you're a little choppy when you're talking. So our connection might not be great right now.
Okay.
But if it happens again, let me know, okay?
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. Let's take a look at the warm-up, right? So generally, when it comes to warming up, you're going to want to start with your flexibility training before moving into cardio. Now, I will say this. That is NASM's opinion. The reason I say that is because, like, obviously, if somebody has tight muscles, doing any type of exercise could put too much stress and they could get hurt. Personally, I actually really like to do my cardio first. It's a really good way to kind of just zone in. I'm not working at an intensity that's going to like injure me or my client. And it's a really good opportunity to increase your body temperature, which makes your stretches a little bit more effective. So personally, it's the first thing that I like to do when I get to the gym. It's the first thing I like to do with my clients, or I'll have my clients do it before our session starts. But, you know, NASM is actually going to have you do it the other way. So you're going to start with SMR. That's going to untie any knots that they have. And then you're going to stretch afterwards. Then throw them on the treadmill, the spin bike, whatever, for 5 minutes, right? In the initial sessions, when your client is new, guys, a lot of times they're going to have a really hard time stabilizing their heart rate. So they're going to get on the cardio and their heart rate's going to go and blast straight through zone 1 because they're not used to doing cardio. And so they don't really know like what intensity to work at. This is actually one of the reasons why I do love the treadmill in particular. The treadmill is very easy to set a pace, and then just go straight at it, right? It does it for you. So that way you can kind of dial it in. I love to start my clients on the treadmill to get them used to it. And then they can move to whatever type of like equipment they like beyond that, you know, a rowing machine or whatever. That's fine. But in the beginning, a lot of times, like people are really bad at stabilizing their heart rate. They don't quite know how to do it. Then for your warm-up section, like I said, you are going to address the flexibility as well. With beginner clients who are in the stabilization, let's say this is the first couple sessions with somebody, you're really only going to apply corrective flexibility. There's no reason to assume that someone should jump straight into the strength or power levels. So we're probably going to start with SMR. Now, it should be noted with severely obese clients or clients who are brand new, you may want to skip SMR. You may want to skip the foam rolling because it can be, you know, pretty painful. And you're trying to make a good first impression here. Also, with obese clients, they may not have the upper body strength to hold themselves up. You know, if you look at like SMR for the calves, you know, this is difficult, right? Like you have to hold your body weight up. That might not be effective for all clients, right? So if they're obese, you know what they can do? They can use like a tiger tail, right? So you can get one of these, right? This is a really nice, like these little physio sticks. They're great. You can foam roll, you know, you're not foam rolling, you're tiger tailing, but like you're doing SMR here for a muscle that you might have trouble getting to, you know, under other circumstances, right? So rather than this, you go with that, right? Okay, well, they're just kind of mashing it up and down, but you do want to create sustained pressure. Then when we move into the core, for a first session with like a brand new client, choose 1 or 2 core exercises to start them with, right? You don't need to do like a ton of them. And you're just going to really focus on like core stabilization exercises. Really, we're not, you know, for the most part, we're focused on stability here. Now, I will say with severely obese clients, when it comes to core training, guys, be cautious about taking them to the floor. So like, honestly, a plank, you may want to actually modify it and do sort of like an elevated plank, you know, something like this, right? This can be great for a client who is like severely obese because now they're not getting a full gravity and it's going to not, they don't have to worry about like hitting the ground really hard and like bruising their knees, getting it, and then having a hard time getting up off the floor. That can be really difficult. And then another really good one is like a resistance band hold. Let's see if I can find what I'm looking for here. There we go. Well, she's doing a wood chop. Here we go. There's a it's called a Pow-Log Press, right? So a Pow-Log Press is where you actually have a resistance band pulling that way, and you hold it here and you push it out and bring it back like this. And what's happening is it wants to pull you like this, but you're resisting that stabilization. You can also have a client walk with the band. And that can be a really good like core exercise that doesn't move their spine. So it is core stabilization. It's great for beginner clients, but it doesn't take them to the floor. And so seniors, obese clients, really effective core exercise that sadly is not in your book. Balance training, we know balance training is huge, right? So focusing on like 1 or 2 balance exercises in an initial session can be helpful. However, balance training is also really frustrating for a lot of clients. So you might not incorporate it into your first training session. You might wait and just sort of skip that section for now and come back to it later. That does happen sometimes. Now, we also really like plyometrics, but with severely obese clients, you're probably not going to start with plyometrics. The impact is going to be really, really hard on their knees, their ankles, and things like that. So it could be that this is something that you want to hold off on. We've also got the SAQ training. Again, SAQ is really, really fun, but chances are you're not going to do it with new clients in their first 3 sessions because you don't necessarily know yet whether they have proper flexibility, range of motion, core stabilization, things like that. That being said, speed ladders, cone drills, and things like that, this stuff is fun, you know, like this is just a really kind of fun thing to do with your clients. So like just 2 ins, it's very simple, right? Burns a lot of calories. It's engaging. People enjoy it. I do recommend doing this with obese clients. I've done speed ladders with clients literally like over like 400 pounds, and they're great at it. You know, it's so fun. They really, really tend to enjoy it and stuff. So I do think it's great. Just make sure that, you know, they have proper core stability before trying to do any of that stuff. And then when it comes to resistance training, chances are in your first session, you're probably going to pick some introductory exercises, somewhere between 2 and 5 exercises, right? Putting the emphasis probably on like total body exercises and probably like chest and back. So that way, you're not overwhelming them with too many body parts. They're not doing a full total body routine. This is just a really good way to kind of like ease them into the whole concept of working out. Now, in the second session, you can maybe get into a few more, right? Teach them the shoulders, teach them leg specific exercises, right? That's great. You know, a lot of times, guys, when I'm building a routine for a new client, I'm just going to do a very quick, easy version here. A lot of times I will build just a simple A-B routine. So they'll have like workout A and they'll have workout B, and I'll go with like a total body exercise for both. And then they both have like a leg exercise, but this one's going to be anterior chain, and this one's going to be a leg exercise that's posterior chain. And then I'll go chest, back. This will be shoulders. And oh wait, actually, sorry, that's not true. Chest, back, and that will be a horizontal pull. And then this will be back, vertical pull, shoulders, biceps, triceps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 exercises. That's not too much for somebody who's new to have to learn, right? And that's like one of my favorite styles of routines. And then what I will do is I will, you know, obviously I'm going to plug exercises into this, but what I'll do is I will have them switch, you know, workout A on Monday, workout B on Wednesday, back to workout A on Friday, and then they repeat the next week. And that way they're not really getting too much work. I will say I don't go total body to legs. I would probably move this, you know, to the end of the circuit. Put this up here. Actually, I'd probably put that at the end of the circuit. I probably go in this order. This is, I like, you know, I try to make sure that I go like upper body, lower body, upper body, lower body. And total body feels more like lower body. So that's what I like to do without giving my client too many things to memorize. Then we can get some cardio integrated into the middle of our routine. With weight loss clients, this is really effective, especially considering that they might not want to do too many sessions in the gym. Me personally, I think cardio should be its own style of workouts. You should warm up, do your cardio, and then do your cool down. Also, in later stages of training, I think that that's where it's a really good place to put your movement prep. So you do like your warm up and resistance training on one day, and then you do your warm up cardio and movement prep on another day. I really like that approach personally. But with weight loss clients in particular, we don't want to overwhelm them. We aren't going to be lifting at like a very high intensity. And so integrating strength and cardio together can be really effective. Also, considering that this is probably a severely obese individual, cardio can be pretty darn good for leg strength, considering that like they're going to, be working those things. So they can build up that endurance early on, and that can translate later down the road much more effectively. Try to teach them a couple different types of cardio if you want to. Spin bike, elliptical, rowing machine. There's so many different types of cardio at the gym. And then now that they know how to use those cardio machines, here's the big benefit. After like the third session, your client should know how to warm up and cool down on their own, right? Like they should know pretty well how to kind of get around the gym by this point, without like a lot of like one-on-one training. And that's where, you don't have to spend a lot of your 1 hour session doing all the cardio stuff. They know how to do that on their own. So it's like, hey, if I'm training Mir, I'd be like, hey, Mir, 20 minutes before our session starts, I want you here in the gym and I want you to go through those stretches that I taught you, right? And then that way, like he's already ready to go. We can just head straight to the gym for him. Unless he needs Pnf stretches, in which case, yeah, I'm gonna have to do that with him. So first session recommendations: greet your client, take them over and do your fitness assessment. That's your PAR-Q, your medical history questionnaire, maybe a little bit of dietary information, but for the most part, we just really start with that first session introductory info. Get them into the objective stuff, right? Get their heart rate, get their resting heart rate, body weight, body composition, and then take them into the overhead squat. So you can learn a little bit about their posture, maybe a pushing and pulling assessment. First workout, introduce them to how to warm up, take them through some flexibility exercises that are going to be effective for them. Let's say I'm training Julio and I'm like, ooh, those calves are tight, right? I show them a couple calf stretches. And then get into a little bit of core. We skip the balance for now and then go right into the resistance training. When you are done, most important thing on this freaking slide, guys, schedule your next appointment. That is huge. Put it on the books. Don't go, all right, I'll give you a call later and we can set something up. Don't do that. Set it up before they leave the gym. Put it on the freaking books, guys. That's the biggest rookie mistake I see from every trainer that I'm working with all the time. I'm like, hey, can't help but notice you didn't book that person on their next appointment. I was like, oh, I was going to call them later today. It's like, what if they don't answer? What if you forget? What if they change their mind? Don't do that. Now, second session, first thing you're gonna do is they walk in, review how the last one went. Hey, David, we really crushed it last time. How are you feeling? What'd you think of the workout? What'd you like? What'd you dislike? What do we feel like we need to change, right? Maybe do a little bit of nutritional consultation. Let's introduce them to the idea of like what an AMDR is. Maybe by this point, you've calculated out their macros. You got all their stats from last time, right? So now you know what their BMR is. And so you can set them up with like a macro plan. Say, this is something that would work pretty well for you. You said your goal was to lose 1/2 pound a week. Well, there you go. Those are your numbers. This is just an example. I'm not prescribing this diet to you. I'm just giving you an example of what I think would work for you. Again, we leave the ball in their court. Refine their goals. You say like, hey, at last time you had a lot of outcome goals. They weren't very specific. I asked you to redo those. What did you come back with this time? And they're like, well, great. There we go. Now we got some SMART goals, right? Schedule the next appointment, head to the gym floor, right? Put the next appointment on the books and then hit the gym floor. Flexibility. Now take them into balance training rather than core. Take them into a little bit of cardio so they know how to do that, and then get into resistance training, and then they can cool themselves down afterwards. Third session, you're ready to go, right? They know how to warm up. They do their own flexibility. They do their own cardio. They show up, take them through the core, take them through the cardio, take them through balance, and then get into like workout A or workout B. This is where like, you can really start getting into your routine. By your third or fourth session, and by the way, that's actually their third official because the first one was the free assessment, right? Now, by this point, they are on a routine and you're going to start meeting with them regularly. Be like, all right, how's it going? How do you feel last time? Great. Let's hit the floor. You do that for 4 weeks, change up their routine, give them something new, teach them the next one. And that's how the cycle starts, right? And then suddenly you're working with somebody for a couple months, they've lost a couple pounds and they're looking good. Now, problems. Here's all the stuff that sucks. Challenges that you will absolutely run into. Missed sessions is a big one. Let's say a client has trouble waking up in the morning. They have a really busy schedule. Maybe they're just really sore and not motivated, right? Be proactive on these things, right? Always send them those reminder appointment schedules, either one day before or maybe 12 hours. Just set it up. It's an automatic text schedule. You don't have to actually manually text every one of your clients. I used to do it on Sundays. I'd sit there, I'd do my meal prep, and then afterwards I would write out any new client sessions that I needed to for the week, get all my work done, and that way I can just work Monday through Friday. I don't have to worry about it every single day. And I would set up all my text messages. And I was able to do that on a BlackBerry back in like 2008. So I know you can do that now. Now, if they don't show up within the first 15 minutes, definitely text them, give them a call, try to get in touch with them. If they don't show up, guys, charge them. You're not doing anybody any favors. You might think you are because like, oh, they slept in, they're new. Look, I'm pretty lenient too. I usually have like a 3-strike policy, but if you're letting somebody miss their sessions and they aren't facing any repercussions, they have no reason to get better. It doesn't help anybody, late arrivals. If you've got the time, if you want to make up for that time, go for it. But honestly, if you notice that your client is consistently showing up late and stuff, you've got more appointments. You can't just book your next, client. That is highly unprofessional. You are letting your client's bad decisions affect your next client. Don't do that. It's a bad habit to get into. So try to make up for lost time. If it's a calorie burn that you're focused on, maybe incorporate some cardio. What I used to do, this was my strategy. I had pre-made workouts for my clients for whenever they showed up late. And those, I was like, well, we can't really do your routine today, but I got a really good pre-made that I can take you through. And be like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do that. I made sure that those pre-mades were the devil's workouts. Like they were so freaking hard. And so it got to a point where my clients were like, there's no way I'm going to show up late because if I do, he will kill me. And so like that was like my strategy for that. I would also do the same thing if my client forgot their workout journal. I'd be like, oh no, I don't remember what your routine is. We're going to have to do a pre-made. And then they would never forget their workout journal after that. It's very sneaky. Nutrition compliance, we know is a big one, right? We've already talked about this. Your clients are going to fall off their way. So we got to find the root cause, right? We might find that our client isn't dropping weight. A lot of times that's because they are underreporting how many calories they're actually consuming. A lot of people just don't understand portion sizes. So teach them a little bit, learn a little bit about portion sizes. 3 ounces of meat, guys, it's about the size of a deck of cards. There's the hand method. This is super helpful, actually. For the most part, a palm size is a pretty good portion for most people in terms of like how much food you should be getting at a meal. A thumb size, that's interesting. Thumb is about a tablespoon. That's about how much a tablespoon is. And then like a fist size is usually like a really good amount for like, your protein. This picture actually isn't helping me at all. But here's some other ones, right? Like I said, 3 ounces of protein is about a deck of cards. Half a cup of vegetables is about the size of your computer mouse. 1/2 a tennis ball is 1/2 a cup. So like these seem kind of silly, but they are like very effective ways to kind of help your client understand how many ounces of food they're getting. And then maybe figure out the other reasons. So are they getting a lack of support from home? Is the program too hard to stick to? Like, why is it that they're having trouble, eating properly? Or why are they having trouble getting to the gym? We are looking for signs of relapse. Remember, we're trying to get somebody to move through like habit changes, right? If they are relapsing, if they miss a session, it's not the end of the world. You don't have to like freak out over your client. That's called a lapse. It happens. Relapsing is what we're avoiding. When a lapse becomes a habit, that's where they're like falling back into old habits and stuff. So remind them why they got into the routine, right? Remind them why they're here, what their goals are. That's one of the best ways to get somebody to recommit. Sore muscles, Edwin, we talked about this earlier, right? Sometimes people are going to come in and they're like, I can't move. Change up for a stretch session, right? Get them in, maybe do a little bit of cardio, a couple gentle strength training, maybe like a deload, half the number of sets, and spend the rest of the time, doing a little bit of stretch. That can be really, really helpful. You might find that clients are experiencing like really extreme like hunger sometimes. That is causing them to fall off the wagon. What's the real reason here, right? Are they actually hungry or are they thirsty? Let's see if we can increase their water intake. Are they not eating balanced meals? And so they're spiking their blood sugar and then they get really hungry afterwards. Are they not planning ahead? Are they just trying to eat randomly at certain times? That makes it difficult to manage your hunger levels, so get them on a schedule. Let's take a look at their food journal and see what's going on. Remember, in their food journal, they're not only tracking what they're eating, they're tracking when they're eating it. And then there is just like frustration. Your clients are going to get emotional in the middle of their, journey. They're going to notice that, they're not losing weight fast enough. Try to make sure that you're not weighing your client every single week. That can lead to frustration. Try to get them to take the importance off their weight and put the importance on how they're performing in the gym, because that is something that's going to progress much faster. But we want to focus on like doing a variety of tests. They call that cluster testing, but we want to test lots of variables. If your client's circumference measurements change, but their weight doesn't, that's a good sign. That means that like muscle is replacing fat. There are holidays, they're going to get in the way. Just try to have your client come up with a plan of action beforehand. That's one of the best tools you've got. Like, it's okay to have to celebrate the holidays. It's okay to like celebrate a birthday. That's fine, guys. But think of it as like an 80-20 method. 80% of your meals should be healthy. And you've got 20% to goof around and go out on the weekends, but when it's happening more consistently than that 80 or 20, that's where it starts to become a problem. So we got to be ready for that. And we got to kind of have strategies in place, And that is sort of the practical approach to training. Like I said, we didn't get a huge emphasis on sets, reps, or any of the other stuff, which is important to know. The weight loss class isn't as good at that as some of our other program design classes, but hopefully you found this approach to guiding your client through the first 3 sessions. That was a very different take than how we normally do it. Hopefully you found that helpful today. Make sure that you are sequencing your information with your clients and you are giving them a routine that is simple and easy for them to handle, right? And then you're just going to follow that 3-step process that we always talk about, right? You're going to gather the information for your client first, you're going to write the program, and then you're going to kick their butt, right? You're going to take them through so they can actually do it, right? And that's about it, guys. How y'all feel? This is our last lecture here at the end of the month. We do have our in-person meetup on Monday, but other than that, we're wrapped up. How you guys feeling?
Cool.
Great.
Yeah. Love it. So class announcement. We do have our in-person meetup on Monday, like I said. If you guys have your Sochi shirts, please try to wear those on Monday. I believe we're going to be taking a couple photos here and there, just updating some stuff on the website. If you're super uncomfortable getting your photo taken, that's fine. I'm not going to force anybody to do that. But if you don't have a Sochi shirt, call Sochi and we will have one available for you at the front desk on Monday, hopefully. And if you don't have that, if you guys could do me a favor and wear black t-shirts on Monday, that would also be quite helpful. let's see here. And yeah, homework 4 is going to be up on Canvas today. When we have our in-person meetup, you guys have the whole weekend to study, but we will have our final exam up. I will be staying at Sochi all day on Monday for the most part, posting grades and stuff. This doesn't apply to John, Simon, or Julio, but the rest of you guys, if you are missing homeworks from the last mod, you got to get those done by this weekend. I'm going to be posting grades. I will send out a list today of missing homeworks, so you guys can look forward to that. And that's it. That's sort of where we're headed.